still one microphone. Gemma, have you just walked up to the microphone?
Yes.
Just wanted me to water across the stage. Yeah. Very well. Okay. All right, if I fidget, it's not because I'm bored, it's because something's fidgeting inside me, so I apologise. So thank you so much for that, Gemma, and thank you so much for also staying. I appreciate we're running a bit over time and I'm between you and your next glucose hit. So it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to be chairing this panel today. And thanks to Gemma's session earlier this morning talking about the Connect partnership model, she introduced the concept of classroom to boardroom, so I'm here to really operationalise that and give you some real life examples of what that partnership looks like, to help organisations like yourselves build innovation capability, get inspiration for new ideas, and hopefully go on a slightly longer journey with QUT or universities in general in order to boost our broader national innovation capability. So I'd just like to introduce the panels. As Gemma mentioned, we have Belinda Taylor, who is the Executive Director, Communications, Culture and Engagement of Children's Health Queensland. And Belinda has trusted me this past 3 months to join our classroom as our real-world partner for students. And we've been working on a provocation on how might we digitally transform service delivery across Queensland so that if anybody presents across the road to Children's Hospital, they're getting the same care as if they were in regional or remote Queensland. And we also have Patrick Nolan, CEO and Creative Director of Opera Queensland, who was kind enough to join us this time last year in the classroom and really provoking students to think about how might Opera Queensland expand the reach and accessibility and diversity of their audience over and above the perceived barriers to entry to opera. So a lot of people seem to think that it's, hard to engage with or it's expensive, etc. So how can we make it really accessible? And then we also have Zach Ravena, who's our student voice on this panel, because it would be remiss to say, look at all the great things we're doing in the classroom and then not actually hear what it means for a student to take away from this experience, being able to work with real-world partners on real-world issues from day one in the classroom. So Zach was in Patrick's cohort working on the Opera Queensland provocation. And if any of you have kids who have just recently gone through the process of picking their universities, perhaps they saw Zach, Patrick and Terry, who you saw on the previous panel, in a recruitment ad looking at, come join QUT Business School because look at all the really cool things we're doing partnering between industry, big tech and universities. So what I want you to walk away with after today's panel is, yes, a little bit of insight on what it looks like to partner with us in the QUT classroom, but also hopefully instill a bit of inspiration in you to pursue universities in general. So as industry, you have a huge role to play in ensuring that universities are creating workforce-ready graduates and that you actually can take advantage of getting that great new talent, those new ideas, new perspectives into your business. So if you are not really sure how to even start that conversation of engaging with universities, we're more than happy to help you on that journey, whether it's in one of our classrooms or just universities in general. So my first questions to the panel are, first of all, to Patrick and Belinda. And Belinda, I might start with you because CHQ, this is not your first time engaging with QUT, let alone a university. So I just thought you might want to reflect on why did you choose to partner with us, this past semester, and how does that fit into your broader, industry or organisation and university partnership?
Thanks, Paula. Quite an easy decision. To your point, Children's Health Queensland has been a long-term partner with QUT, originally in the biomedical research space, which makes absolute sense, but more recently in health services research, some translational research. And for those of you that don't know who we are, Children's Health Queensland is one of 16 hospital and health services across the state. We are publicly funded. What is unique about us as opposed to our 15 other colleagues across Queensland is we do not have a geographical or a fixed geographical space. We are actually accountable for the paediatric health care for children all across Queensland. So somewhat of a hefty task, and from a funding perspective, we are funded for activity. So the people that are walking through our doors, accessing our services, as it should be as a publicly funded service, but we've heard a lot just from the previous panel around the values and the culture, and we are very much a values-driven organisation, and our aspirations are far bigger than the children and young people that are walking through needing acute and specialist healthcare. We're far more interested in making a broader impact for future generations and improving healthcare outcomes for all Queensland children, particularly our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids and families across the state. So partnership for us is a given. And in terms of why we chose to partner with QUT, we have a lot of good work to do. And as I mentioned, very values driven. So we look for values aligned partners, and strategic partnership sits within my portfolio. And I have a saying that we go where the energy is, because there is always good work to do. But for us, we like to move quickly. And for us, QUT is that partner that brings the energy, is ready to do. And this opportunity to work with the first year undergraduates was a really great opportunity for us to explore further our value of curiosity and our culture of fostering imagination within our organisation, particularly with young people.
And it is a poignant point in your digital transformation journey, which is, as Gemma mentioned, all organisations are on some version of that journey at the moment. So how did that partnership inform, or how was it involved in that digital transformation journey?
So we just completed our master planning, which was our very first as a HHS. We're quite young. The Queensland Children's Hospital turned 8 yesterday. So we had just completed a big piece of work around what did paediatric healthcare service delivery, what were the needs going to look like over the next 10 to 15 years. And of course, digital transformation featured very heavily in that. We need to move away from bricks and mortar and think more about how we can transform those healthcare delivery services, our models of care, what those pathways look like, particularly for regional and remote children and families. So for us, the thinking around how we transform that, COVID was a really great kickstart. We've seen that across the healthcare system, but certainly for us at Children's Health Queensland. And we were really starting to think about what could that look like for us in 2032, which was the provocation for the undergrads. And I was talking to Zach before we came in here today, and just blown away at how on the mark they were in terms of the depth of thinking that we had done. These undergrads kind of came at a semester level and really brought some really great thinking and some things that we were already looking at, but with a really fresh perspective.
And I'm glad you brought up COVID, because Patrick, when you joined us in the classroom, you were really joining us, so what was it, second half of 2021. So we'd gone through the thick of COVID and you not being able to have live performances and the complexities of that. So when you came to us, you had some experience around digital transformation of, working with the likes of Google, and how might you use YouTube to scale Upper Queensland. But I guess I just would love to know, maybe that had part motivation and why you chose to partner with that at that time, or was there something else that was driving that partnership?
Yes, definitely. The profile and the reputation of QUT was definitely a big driver for us, in that we knew that, from an industry perspective, QUT is really at the cutting edge of working in this space, and the way that, particularly that dynamic between sort of business and the digital, was something that we were really curious about. And obviously, in the midst of COVID, digital was front and centre of all our imaginations. And so I guess as an organisation, we're always interested in the academy and and as an arts organisation, we're constantly challenging ourselves to think differently about what we do and why we do it. And to that extent, similar to what Belinda was saying, we felt that the values that you guys embodied really aligned with ours, and we were genuinely thrilled with the outcomes that we had. And it's in the same way as Belinda said, a lot of what the students were thinking was on par with our thinking, if not ahead of it. And for me, I think as a CEO, one of the reasons that I always want to work with universities is the energy that young people bring to these ideas. You can't get that anywhere else, really. And there is something about the compressed, focused nature of a tertiary space that really brings new ideas front and centre. And when you're at work every day, getting on with the BAU, to come in and have the freshness of these imaginations and their willingness to try new things and put different ideas on the table, that just made a whole lot of sense and is a wonderful energy to be around.
Yeah, and I suppose something that both of you have in common, at least with your organisations, is that the students in the classroom, so Belinda, for you, they're your next generation parents who are bringing their kids into your service. And then for you, Patrick, when you were sharing with us the demographics of those who are engaging now in opera and will in the future engage, the students were your future potential customers or audience as well. So it was that nice connection as well, being able to get their input on, well, what are the tools, what are the processes, what are the cultural themes that they might want to see in order to engage the organisation as well. Zach, from your perspective, you had a great quote in our recruitment advertisement that I want to get sewn onto a pillow, that was about, grades are great, but having that real world partnership is just something else, especially very early on in your degree. Do you want to expand on that point?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, excuse me. So one thing that I really liked about the Future Enterprise as a unit was that it completely removed the hypothetical aspect of study. It's not what should Upper Queensland do if XYZ, it was what should Upper Queensland do? And you meet them straight from the get-go. And as a student, what that really does is, instead of being purely hypothetical, it gives you an opportunity to really see how far you can take this, to see what you can actually find for yourself in your first year, if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's like, now's the time to figure that out. So generally, removing the hypothetical aspect really just sort of encourages students to do the most they can with it.
Absolutely. So in terms of now that I appreciate we're like a week on, Belinda, from our engagement, but a little bit further along, Patrick. Patrick's actually joined 2 of my classrooms. The postgraduate capstone as well followed that engagement. How are you using these insights next? What's sort of next on the agenda to inform your innovation journey?
In all manner of ways. So I've in fact got a board meeting next week in which we're going to be talking through the stuff we did in the capstone process with you, which was all around how we engage with our casual workforce. And we're actually going to be implementing some of the ideas that the students put on the table, which is really exciting. And we actually presented the papers that you did to our HR committee, and the HR committee, which had some really senior, actually a very senior woman from Queensland Health is on our board, or she was involved in Queensland Health, no more, was genuinely thrilled with the work that the students were doing. And I guess we put the reports in front of them knowing them that they would be thrilled. We weren't going to put something in front of our board that didn't sort of meet the mark. But there is genuine real-world application in the ideas that have emerged. And in terms of the stuff that we did with Zach, that was much more around how we engage with audiences digitally and how we look at it bringing a younger audience into the work we do. And we're actually about to enter into a whole digital reevaluation of the way in which we take our work out to not only people across regional Queensland, but across the nation and then internationally. And a lot of the modelling that you guys did, we're using as a sort of springboard and a catalyst for those ideas. So, yeah, in all kinds of ways.
Oh, that's excellent to hear. Belinda, I know you, again, like I said, you've had a week. So what are you doing next? How is this helpful?
Next, I'm meeting with Gemma at 3:00 to talk about what we're going to do next. We are only a week out. Look, I think, I touched on it earlier in terms of the fresh perspective that the students brought to some of our challenges, some that we knew and some that we didn't. And I think what we took away and we're kind of processing at the moment is probably less of one thing, but actually the thinking that went into it. And the thing that we really took away from last week's session, while I mentioned a lot of things are kind of already on our radar, actually the way the students, their thinking is not constrained. So as organisations, we've been doing what we've been doing for quite some time. We deal in our own complexity of our industry, and whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not, a lot of our thinking is biased and we can constrain ourselves without even knowing it. And, one of the things that was really powerful out of one of the presentations was lived experience, and a young person sharing their lived experience as being a part of a family that had a child in regional Queensland that had to frequently access our services in Brisbane. And those things are really powerful. We are trying really hard to do a lot more genuine and authentic co-design and amplify the voices of children and young people. And I agree, those students are our future parents, but for me, they're also young people, and having that insight and thinking kind of put to us in a different way was really powerful. So I think what we'll be talking to Gemma about is how do we unlock that and connect it to the thinking and the work that we're already doing so that we can ensure that that fresh thinking, that perspective is infused in that for our benefit, but also to foster the thinking of the young people and the students that participated.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next question, again, both to Patrick and Belinda, and then I'd love to hear Zach's perspective on this. When you're looking for new hires, and I appreciate, Patrick, you have, half of a workforce that are artistic and that they're not coming from my business degree. But in terms of what are you looking for in intangible skills, tangible skills that they really need to have? What does a good graduate look like for you?
A good graduate, I guess, is someone who brings an awareness of the organisation. So when you're sitting there having an interview with them, they've actually done their research, and usually university students are good researchers. They have very good written communication skills as well as verbal communication skills, so that they can actually, apply the ideas that they have in a number of fields that they, be that whether they're writing content for our website, whether they're writing reports, whether they're pitching new ideas to other festivals, other presenters. And I guess more than anything, and this is the thing that we really enjoyed about working with your students, is an openness to exploring new ideas and actually bringing new ideas into the process, a confidence. Because that's, it can be challenging when you're a student to step into a workforce for your first time. And the really refreshing thing about working with you guys was how easily and articulately they were able to share their ideas and bring their ideas to us.
Look, honestly, my answer will be very similar to Patrick's. Outside of the technical and the clinical skills for our clinical workforce, it really is the soft skills that make all the difference, and that is for our corporate and our clinical workforce. Communication is key, and I think increasingly in all of the industries that is emerging, especially as we all move into that digital age. I think some of the nuances of the human contact can be lost in those delivery models, and how we kind of innovate and maintain that human connection is really important. And I think, the benefit, you cannot replace, and to your quote, great quote, I'll get a pillow as well, you cannot beat real world experience. The theoretical, like being grounded in that theoretical knowledge, and your education is really critical, but it's not until the rubber hits the road that you really start your learning. And I think that that's one of the things that's most valuable about this kind of program is giving the students the opportunity to experience that kind of exchange, and we had some really good and some challenging exchanges, which I thought was really great. But even in the conversations we had with the students after, they expressed something really similar, that it made it so much more tangible. They were so passionate with what they were doing because it was a real world problem. And I think that, you know, to Patrick, your comment around confidence, I was blown away at how well these guys did in their first year. But that really will make all of the difference, regardless of what industry they're going into, in terms of what they will bring to the table.
So both very context agnostic skill sets. Zach, how did that fit in with your journey on making sure that your CV is, you know, your workforce ready graduate?
Yeah, definitely taking notes as to what both of you said. But in general, I guess the short answer is that I very literally bring this experience up whenever I can, whether it's my resume, in an interview, being able to say, oh yeah, I've already worked with a client and provided recommendations based on evidence. Being able to say that outright is a lot better than saying, oh, I've written a report based on XYZ. So just generally, essentially flexing that you have that experience, and being able to, I guess, go back to it over and over again and actually prove that you can do this and you've done it before, because especially in first year, it's really hard to get industry experience because you're so early in your degree. So doing it as part of your course just takes care of it for you.
And a lot of students don't have the ability to get access to those, do unpaid work or anything like that, which is why we have the work integrated learning model. Gemma's giving me signals. Questions from the room. Anybody have any questions about the journey or what it might look like to partner in the classroom? Yes, Anna?
Thank you. I'm wondering, what were the challenges in bringing together the partnerships and working with students and industry, and how did you go about overcoming those challenges? So I guess, what are the lessons learned from this experience?
To the panel or
Everyone.
You're breaking up my love fest here, Anna.
I'll pick that one up because I did want to make this point. Thank you for the question, Anna. I think, you know, I talked about we've got a very broad partnership with QUT with a lot of moving pieces. But in terms of this piece, I will be completely upfront and honest, particularly if there's anyone in this room thinking about doing a similar partnership with an undergrad course like this. We were a little bit reticent around the time investment and the value we would get from it, because we are all very busy. We know these partnerships take time and energy, and you know, we really had to kind of weigh up whether or not this was going to be of mutual value. I absolutely understood the value to the undergrads. I'm a QUT alumni. I'm very passionate about the classroom to boardroom model, so that was a given, but was it going to kind of give us the shared value? And I just wanted to say, from that time and investment piece, Paula, Gemma, they made it very, very easy for us to do. So this was aligned with a piece of work we were already doing. We gathered some data, we gathered some evidence, all of which was existing. We have a really trusted relationship with QUT, we shared that. We had some touch points along the way where we could engage with the students, but I would argue, certainly from our perspective, there were no challenges. This was a very easy process, and so I would really encourage all of you in the room, if you're thinking about it, or maybe you'll think about it now, they made it really, really easy for us to participate, and we were really grateful for that. And like I said, we absolutely got value from it that I think will continue to evolve.
Yeah, I would just add to that I think the greatest challenge was choosing which idea to choose of all the ideas that were put on the table. Seriously, you know, there are so many good ideas there, and it's like, wow, where do you begin?
Actually, I'll add to that, Patrick. Just one second. Patrick, I will add to that. One thing that was interesting about, you know, Zach's cohort going through was that I think 70% of the students had not ever heard an opera performance. So in terms of very rapidly upskilling and getting information about the context and what's important in performing arts and what does the future look like, that was a challenge on everybody's behalf, because we had to make sure that, you know, the students had the information available. So yeah, that was an interesting challenge unique to that particular cohort. Yeah. Okay, Gemma, sorry, stop yelling at me. What do More questions? Yes, down the front. Thanks, Ryan.
Sorry, went the wrong way.
Run.
Again, Marco from Leonardo Consulting. So we have been working with QUT for many years and also an alumni. But the one thing that I've picked out of this whole session today is what you guys are doing here and what we need more of, talking to what you just alluded to there, Belinda, is a culture of benevolent innovation in the classroom so that these people that we're teaching now can be benevolent at heart, not through policy and other things, to be able to drive the innovation, the technology, the robotics, the AI stuff that Marek blew our minds with, and ensure that it's in a proper culture, which I think was the essence of that last panel, is you've got to get the culture right, and you guys are doing it. So how are you working towards, and I suppose it's how it's every single one of us, but how are you guys working towards establishing that structure to get that benevolence into innovative thinking into the students of this day and age?
That's a very big question. I would say that the culture starts from the leadership, surely, and so you set the example, and that it becomes part of your practice. Whether it's the stand-up meeting that you have at the beginning of the day, you're reinforcing those values to the partnerships that you're having, across the city, and again that the values are aligned. Because I think in the same way, that benevolence that you talk about, I think is certainly reciprocated by QUT as well. There is a great generosity in the partnership.
Any other questions from the floor? No? Yeah, well, hands up, anybody in the room who's never experienced an opera performance before?
It's quite okay. Really, I don't believe you that there's only two people. Really? Only two people in this room that's never... Come on, be honest. Four, really?
Yeah.
Okay. How many of you been to an Opera Queensland production? Good, eh?
Excellent. So before we move on to our wonderful surprise, could I please get everybody to thank the panel for their time today? Over to you, Gemma.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you very, very much to the Classroom to Boardroom panel and our dear partners. So thank you very much. Before we do close out, we are getting the aircon on. I do seem to think that even the aircon said it's time. But to close us out today for the Future Enterprise Symposium, we do have a special treat